All right, everybody, it is Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight I'm taking a break from some of the normal stuff I talk about and diving head first into the Ilhan Omar fiasco that is going on in this country, that is a microcosm, if you will, of all the religious bigotry that has infected the United States, probably since its inception, but definitely since 9/11. We have lived in a country that is so full of hate. It's just not even funny. Donald Trump is the bastard stepchild, if you will, the spawn of the hatred that 9/11 brought on, and quite frankly, the loss of privilege that has been going on within the white community. It is just appalling to see some of the stuff that's been going on. She has been attacked viciously by Republicans. She has been attacked viciously by Democrats, all for criticizing AIPAC. And let's be fair, AIPAC is a 100% lockstep organization with Netanyahu and the right-wing government of Israel. We are not talking about anti-Semitism here. We are talking about a very specific type of behavior, a government, a style of foreign policy, a blatant disregard for human life in the Palestinians. We're not talking about religion. We're not talking about a race. We're not talking about the people. There's absolutely nothing anti-Semitic about decrying a super PAC, much the same as the NRA, much the same as any of these other fundraising arms that seek to influence American government. And folks, she had the brass to speak out and say boldly what it is many of us on the left have been saying for a long time now. The AIPAC team has got way too much control over our government. The money going in has polluted too many of our decisions. It oftentimes doesn't feel like we're represented. It feels like foreign interests are represented, not the citizens of the United States. And one by one, everybody did their duty-bound, montage in front of the world to let everybody know how they stood against anti-Semitism and therefore stood against Ilhan Omar's, statements. And they were not bad, folks. She was saying what most of us say, that AIPAC has way too much of an outsized influence on our government. So what we've done is we've put together a kind of timeline of events that have occurred, snippets, important pieces of this saga. And we're going to come back and we're going to break it down. This is next.
Congresswoman Omar is an embarrassment and a disgrace to the Muslim community.
She commits yet another violence against the families of survivors of 9/11 and the families of victims of 9/11.
The worst terrorist attack, basically, in world history.
It's just beyond ignorant.
She's too casual about something that everybody takes really seriously.
I don't think she's fighting fair because she blames every attack on her being a black female Muslim refugee.
It's despicable.
You have to wonder if she's an American first.
She never stops complaining.
The president said that you should resign and the vice president said you should be held accountable for your views.
I think she should resign from Congress.
Profound denial of 9/11.
And then now she's spinning it. Now she's the victim.
The left is just unhinged. They're throwing labels wherever it can land, and it's landing in ignorance.
Yeah, they're frightened by any kind of difference in thought.
And a special thanks to Representative Omar of Minnesota. Oh, I forgot. She doesn't like Israel. I forgot.
To see
President Trump has repeatedly criticized controversial remarks by the Muslim lawmaker. He's taken aim at her language on social media and her statements on Israel.
I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country.
Omar has insisted her comments have not been meant to be anti-Semitic.
The Democrats have even allowed the terrible scourge of anti-Semitism to take root in their party and in their country.
At campaign events and online, President Trump has tried to brand Omar as anti-Semitic. He has circulated right-wing videos of Omar's past comments, often without their full context.
Here's the truth. Far too long, we have lived with the discomfort of being a second-class citizen. And frankly, I'm tired of it, and every single Muslim in this country should be tired of it. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties. So you can't just say that today someone is looking at me strange, that I am going to try to make myself look pleasant. You have to say, this person is looking at me strange. I am not comfortable with it. I am going to go talk to them and ask them why. Because that is a right you have.
Then last Friday, President Trump tweeted a video of the 9/11 attacks alongside Omar's comment. He wrote, quote, "We will never forget." It unleashed a bitter debate and reopened old wounds over the attacks. In a statement, Omar said, quote, "Since the president's tweet Friday evening, I have experienced an increase in direct threats on my life, many directly referencing or replying to the president's video."
In a presidency littered with shattered norms, there is now one more. A member of Congress says President Trump has put her life at risk, not her political life or her electoral fortunes, but her actual physical safety.
And, of course, President Trump getting in on the action, tweeting this just in the last hour. Quote, "Before Nancy, who has lost all control of Congress and is getting nothing done, decides to defend her leader, Rep. Omar, she should look at the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel and ungrateful U.S. hate statements Omar has made. She is out of control, except for her control of Nancy."
Remarks she made about Israel meant there was a crowd of protesters outside when she gave a speech to a Muslim American civil rights group.
There is some serious bullshit coming from Democratic lawmakers in Washington aimed at Representative Ilhan Omar. On one hand, you have Republicans comparing Ilhan Omar to a terrorist. On the other side, you have Ilhan Omar speaking truth to power, talking about how there is a serious issue here when you're forcing companies to sign a loyalty pledge to Israel, which is unconstitutional. Somehow these are equal things.
So Ilhan Omar was viciously smeared by Republican Dan Crenshaw, and then also later on by the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And she was smeared over some comments that she made at CARE. And CARE is the Center or the Council on American and Islamic Relations. And this is one of those groups where there's just endless xenophobia and bigotry and fear-mongering from the far right, where they try to pretend like this is a Muslim Brotherhood front group or something, when it's just simply not. Like, the whole point of CARE is a bunch of Muslims get together and they try to make it so that the United States of America does not fear them.
The situation. U.S. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi slammed President Donald Trump on Saturday for using 9/11 video to suggest Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was dismissive of the New York attacks. In a Saturday tweet, Pelosi said, quote, "The president shouldn't use the painful images of 9/11 for a political attack."
She's receiving death threats on a daily basis. This is not a joke for the president. This is not one of his boring, ugly jokes. This is serious. This has to do with her safety, the safety of every Muslim, the safety of my own children, my own family. Enough is enough. Our president has to realize the danger of what he's doing.
The president's tweet drew a series of retaliatory responses from Democrats who called it racist and dangerous. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said members of Congress have a duty to respond to the president's explicit attack today. Ilhan Omar's life is in danger. Presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders said Ilhan Omar is a leader with strength and courage. She won't back down to Trump's racism and hate, and neither will we. Another presidential candidate, Senator Elizabeth Warren, wrote the president is inciting violence against a sitting congresswoman and an entire group of Americans based on their religion. It's disgusting, it's shameful, and any elected leader who refuses to condemn it shares responsibility for it.
On Sunday, you tweeted, quote, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment for Ilhan Ilhan, Minnesota, and Rashida Tlaib over their criticisms of Israel. It's stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech rights of Americans, you wrote. Well, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota retweeted your post and added the line, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." Then an opinion editor from the Forward newspaper tweeted, "Would love to know who Ilhan thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel, though I think I can guess. Bad form, Congresswoman. That's the second anti-Semitic trope you've tweeted." Ilhan Omar then responded to that tweet by writing, AIPAC.
This is all so ridiculous. It's all based upon this demand that we indulge what everybody knows is an utter and complete fiction, which is that we're allowed to talk about the power of the NRA in Washington. We're allowed to talk about the power of the Saudis in Washington. We're allowed to talk about the power of big pharmaceutical companies and Wall Street and Silicon Valley and the fossil fuel industry in Washington, but we're not allowed to talk about an equally potent, well-organized, and well-financed lobby that ensures a bipartisan consensus in support of U.S. defense of Israel.
Printing on the front page to circulate all around New York City an image that is incredibly upsetting and triggering for New Yorkers that were actually there and were actually in the radius, that woke up one morning or were in their schools and didn't know if they were going to see their parents at the end of the day, to elicit such an image for such a transparently and politically motivated attack on Ilhan. We are getting to the level where this is an incitement of violence against progressive women of color. And if they can't figure out how to get it back to policy, we need to call it out for what it is, because this is not normal, and this is not a normal level of political debate or rhetoric. As wild as it can get, sometimes this is something beyond what is normal.
And as I've said to my constituents, to my colleagues, when you tell me that you are pained by something that I say, I will always listen and I will acknowledge your pain. It's the same that I expect. So when you have people on Fox News that question whether I'm actually American or I put America first, I expect my colleagues to also say that's not okay. Because I'm a Muslim, I'm an immigrant, I'm a refugee, that I can't have any loyalty to our country. I took an oath. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. I am as American as everyone else is. But no one goes after people like the folks on Fox and Friends that actually say those words. It's not about insinuation, right? They actually said that I might not be an American. My loyalties might not be to this country. But I get called out. They don't.
All right, folks, so when you look at what is going on, you understand that it's like the same thing with the Russia thing. We got the same exact thing where they're attacking her. What they've done is they found a little teeny chink in the armor, and they decided to wedge it in there because what are some of the tenets of fascism? Fascism demands a scapegoat. Fascism demands an us versus them. You look in Nazi Germany, and they chose the Jews. You look in America, and we've chosen the Muslims. When you look at what she has said, how is anyone ever able to push back against the AIPAC lobby, that fascist wing, how is anyone supposed to push back against that if the shutdown argument is immediately met with, you're an anti-Semite, you're not American, etc.? And what's with the loyalty pledge? What's with the no condemnation pledge? What's with this insane, I mean, literally insane, like almost like we pledge allegiance to the flag kind of insane kind of advancement of this you can't criticize Israel. You can't criticize their policies. You can't criticize how they conduct foreign policy or how they conduct themselves in regards to human rights. You can't say anything without it being purposely lied about and shut down and called anti-Semitic. Look, I'm the first one to rush in there and shut down the racist tropes about the Rothschilds and the wealth is nothing but the Jews and all the other stuff these cray-cray people talk about. There are legitimate people out there that need to be shut down for bigoted anti-Semitic nonsense. But what she's doing, she's stepping up large and pushing back, and her life is now in danger. Now, I will tell you, the John Journal put an article out. Tedros Fiker had said that he's no longer supporting her because she doesn't push back against Democrats who are doing the same stuff that the Republicans are doing. That's a tough one because this shouldn't be a partisan thing. People should not be condemning her whatsoever for standing against AIPAC, a political action committee that is heavily influencing the way American politics goes. In no way, shape, or form should she split the line and say, well, I'm only going to attack Republicans that do it. Folks, we should be calling out the Democrats as well. Every one of them that tried to misstate her position, tried to make it anti-Semitic, tried to throw out terms to make it seem like she's anti-Israel, when in reality, she's talking about the outsized impact of AIPAC. She's talking about the outsized impact of money in politics, which is a core tenet of being a progressive. We want money out of politics. So why is she the poster child right now? Well, because she's Muslim. And because she is a woman of color. And because the duopoly, the establishment, doesn't want to see the rise of progressivism. And that's why you saw the Unity Front. Now they're trying to turn it into a partisan bickering thing. Donald Trump, however, poured gasoline on this fire. The 9/11 tape, the 9/11 imagery, trying to tie that to her. Folks, I would go so far as to call that a hate crime. The sitting president, you probably can't do anything to him. But I can tell you, out of everything that I have ever heard about Donald Trump, this is the first act I see that is boldly in your face out there, ripe for censure or even talking about impeachment. when you do this to another person who is a countryman, more importantly, a sitting congressperson, and you use that kind of bigotry and freaking fascist hate against another citizen in this respect, that's worse than Willie Horton. That's worse than any of those old gotchas that they've done in the past. This is about as low as you can get. So I'm here to tell you, Democrats, you need to clean your side of the street. You need to stand for right no matter what. Don't equivocate because you're worried about the money. Republicans, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Any support of this president in this regard leaves you culpable too. And Donald Trump, I usually stay silent because you just are so stupid, so ridiculous, that I just try and get through this presidency by working on what matters to me and don't focus on you. But this one, you got my attention. I think it's time the American people stood up and said, enough's enough. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a good night, everybody.